This time every week, it's time for Party Scoopers. And this week, going to throw you a curve a little bit. We have someone who's no stranger to politics, Brad Anderson, joining us in studio right now. He's from Iowa, pays the price, as we're talking a little bit about campaign finance and hopefully reform that might be going on here real soon, because boy, things have just gone ballistic, haven't they?
Well, you're already seeing it on television. If you watch, you see just back-to-back political ads, and Iowa's no stranger to this. In 2014, you know, our group, which is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization formed after the 2014 elections, in 2014, you just had a record amount of money spent on television. So you compare it, in 2010, you had about $26 million spent on our federal elections here in Iowa.
Which is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. Because we have some contested races here in Iowa. Our congressional districts are typically contested, and we're a purple state. And so then you jump to the next midterm election, 2014. That number went from $26 million to $112 million. It was like nothing we had ever seen. And for me, what I found is when I was knocking on doors, I was a candidate for Secretary of State. When I was knocking on doors, people were so fed up with the whole system. Because in Iowa, you could tell who has a ballot and who doesn't. And I would knock on their door and say, hey, you know, I know you have a ballot. I'd appreciate your support. And they would say, no, look, I'm not even going to vote. I'm so sick of the ads. I'm so sick of the negativity. I'm not even going to vote. And what we found, actually, which is very interesting, is in 2014, you had all this additional money spent on our elections. And we had 55,000 Iowans, Lou, who had requested a ballot that never mailed them in, as a record number in Iowa. So what we found is there is a correlation between increased money spent in our elections and decreased voter participation, which is something I'm very passionate about.
I was going to say, when you were running for Secretary of State, that was one of your big three things that you were fighting for, is to have Iowa's be the biggest turnout as far as voters were concerned in the country.
I thought we should beat Minnesota. I'm tired of getting beat by Minnesota.
We have to beat Minnesota. But the politicians, they don't want to hear this, because they're spending a lot of money, and you're saying less people are coming out now when they spend more money.
It's really interesting, because you think, okay, well, you spent, you know, quadruple the amount of money. You think, well, certainly that's going to turn more people out for the election. But it reaches a point of diminishing returns.
Overkill.
It's overkill. And the other interesting thing that we have found is increased negativity, because even more interesting than the $112 million is the fact that 67% of that money was spent by outside organizations. So for the first time in Iowa's history, we had more money being spent by super PACs than by actual candidates. And it's just so frustrating to watch, because the super PACs just go negative, because there's no, they don't even live in Iowa, so you can't even go up to them and say, well, your ads are terrible, you know, because they have no accountability to the people of Iowa. Therefore, there's this increased negativity in our elections, and then, of course, that dissuades people from voting as well.
So what's the answer? Because it almost seems if you don't have the money, you have to jump out of the race, and people want to win, so they need the backing.
That's right. And so the answer are a couple things. First of all, this problem stemmed after the Citizens United decision by the Supreme Court, which basically allowed corporate money to be spent in our elections. And so the answer in our group is really not a prescriptive group. Iowa Pays the Price is not a prescriptive group per se, but we are seeking solutions to this issue from presidential candidates. I personally believe we have to overturn Citizens United, because it's just, you're already now in this election, in 2016, for the 2016 election, you have seen now about $500,000 being raised and spent in the presidential campaign. Compare that to 2012, which, by the way, 2012 was a record amount of money being spent in our elections. At this time, you had about $195 million. $500 million compared to $109. You're already seeing this explosion in money, and something has to be done, because there is just simply too much money in our
I don't know if there's
elections.
anything more annoying, to be totally honest, and I can understand where they're coming from, when you have one political ad followed by another political ad followed by another political ad. 4 in a row we counted not too long ago. And that absolutely defeats the purpose, because by the time the first one's over, people are tuning off.
Right. And It's interesting because there are no, like, you long for car ads, right? You say, God, I wish there was a shoe ad or something, anything other than a political ad.
Now, is there any way to buffer this by, say, you can't have them back to back, or because that would at least stop the frustration factor?
Yeah, it's more than just political advertising. It's also robocalls. It's also mail.
Oh, those
it's the saturation of it all. And so I honestly believe there are a couple things we can do. Like I said, get rid of Citizens United, overturn that. Number two is increase transparency in our campaign finance system. So basically what that means is if you contribute, as opposed to, contributing to a super PAC or a 501c3 that doesn't disclose its donors, require all these groups to immediately disclose their donors.
We've always said that we wish candidates had NASCAR uniforms where
So they have the
all of their
sponsors.
sponsors
Wouldn't
had
that
to
be
be
great?
listed.
Yeah.
So anytime you saw them, you saw who was backing them, because we don't always know that up front.
Well, and honestly, the money that you're seeing being spent in Iowa, a lot of it is directly contrary to the interests of Iowa. So our wind industry is a great example. Over the last 5 years, we've had $100 million of anti-wind money being spent in Iowa, yet this represents 6,500, 7,000 jobs
Yeah, we're
here in
building them
Iowa.
here, yeah.
We're building them here.
Yeah.
And so the money it's not only too much, but it's also the things and interests that this money represents is directly contrary to our values and really our industries.
Is it a
and our
matter of
livelihood.
maybe some of these advertisers, or not advertisers, but some of these stations saying, you know what, we don't believe in this?
Well, some stations do, to their credit. If there is a negative ad that is clearly false, they pull it off the air until the organization can prove that what they're saying is true, which a lot of times they don't, right? So there are steps that some stations can take, but really our Congress and our president has to step up and address this issue head on. And it's interesting, this is not a Democrat or a Republican issue. So in Iowa, there have been polling on this. 94% of Democrats think that money in politics is a serious issue. 91% of Republicans think it's a serious issue. And you see candidates like Bernie Sanders, but you also see candidates like Lindsey Graham on the Republican side saying we have to overturn Citizens United. So this is not a partisan issue. This is a common sense issue, and we just need to take our democracy back.
So if people are passionate about this, Iowa Pays the Price, do they check out the website, or how do they get involved?
People are incredibly, I'm actually surprised by the response that we've gotten. So go to Iowa Pays the Price. We have a petition which our initial goal was to have 3,000, 4,000 signatures by the time of the caucuses. We're already past 5,000 people that have signed up. And so the other thing is talk to presidential candidates. We have this great unique access here in Iowa. And so go up to your presidential candidates and ask them, what is your solution to this issue? And we have had a number of candidates directly respond to this question, and they've offered some creative solutions. And again, Democrats, Republicans together are talking about this, and we urge everyone to join us in this fight.
Yeah, speak up.
Speak
Find out
up.
how we can stop being bombarded.
Right.
That's the whole idea.
That's exactly right.
Wonderful. Brett, thank you, man, for being
Thank
here.
you.
Appreciate it. Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, I appreciate you.